21, Miss Chase. A Percabeth Christmas Alternate Universe Fanfiction, Part 4. Percy? He gaped at the blonde standing in front of him, barely in the doorway. Percy was not expecting to see Annabeth at his door. Yeah, he swallowed. She looked extremely pretty today. Her hair was out of its usually messy ponytail. It fell over her shoulders in golden curls that were shiny and perfect. Rather than loungewear or professional work clothes, she had on a red sweater and black leggings. And most unlike before, her expression was free from stress, annoyance, and confusion. She took in a breath and looked at him shyly. Could you help me decorate my apartment and door? She asked nervously. Immediately, Percy's face grew into an excited, wide smile. I have been waiting for this day my entire life, he said dramatically. She looked at him with an amused look, blonde eyebrow quirked up. You have? She said, half entertained and half confused. Percy shook his head quickly, face turning red. No, I don't know why I said that, he admitted. Annabeth laughed and motioned towards her apartment door. I have some stuff, but not a lot of Christmas decorations, she explained. Percy shrugged. We can just go out and get some if we need to. Or I can find some stuff in the back of my closet. I probably have some backup decor. To be completely honest, Percy was feeling giddy with joy. Annabeth was asking for his help to help decorate her door and apartment. Sure, it was a small thing, but Percy thought that she didn't think more of him than a neighbor, and an annoying one at best. Piper was next door to her, but she chose Percy. Upon walking into the apartment, Percy noticed the new boxes of lights, garland, and wrapping paper tubes. I didn't really know what to get, Annabeth said, blushing slightly. She looked at the box of tinsel. Percy picked up one of the new ornament boxes. We can work with anything. It's all good. But you don't have a Charlie Brown tree, he pointed out. Everyone on the floor has one, so you can't be left out. Annabeth looked around and quickly. Okay, then, she said, following him out the door. Okay, it was an absolute miracle that he had remembered to clean his car earlier this week. On a normal day, there were wrappers everywhere, jackets thrown haphazardly, and a lot of random bags. Annabeth was clearly a clean and organized person, and Percy doubted that she'd like to ride in a messy car. Here, this one sounds just like you, Percy joked when Your Mean One, Mr. Grinch began to play from the radio. The moment that sentence left his mouth, Percy regretted it and wanted to slam his head down. That was, not a nice thing to say, and certainly they weren't good enough friends to be saying stuff like that. But to his surprise, Annabeth laughed happily. Then You as a Christmas Song is that Andy Williams song? It's the most wonderful time of the year one, she said, waving and wiggling her fingers as if she was in a jazz dance showcase. It is, Percy defended himself, deeply grateful for her sense of humor. Annabeth laughed and tapped her fingers to the music. But if I'm Mr. Grinch, then you're not 39.5 feet away from me, holding a pole of all things, she said, tapping her fingers in the air as if she was going to tap his nose, but decided against it. Pure luck it was that they had just parked, because that gave Percy the golden opportunity. He smiled at her mischievously, wrenched open the car door, and ran out of it screaming, "Ah!" he cried into the silent streets as Annabeth's insane laughter echoed into the streets. The parking lot was empty, so Percy ran around in circles, shrieking like a madman and waving his arms crazily in the air. "Oh my God!" Annabeth laughed. Her blonde curls escaped her beanie and started becoming dusted with snow as it softly flowed down. "Come on," he motioned for her to come into the shop with him. "Not that close," Percy shouted when she took another step. Annabeth rolled her eyes with a smile on her face. "Ha ha, very funny," she said dryly. Percy chuckled and dropped his arms, pushing the door in for her as a gentleman does. "Percy, what are you doing here so late into the season?" the shop owner said with intrigue in his eyes when they spotted Annabeth. "Hey, Chiron, we need a Charlie Brown tree for her," he explained. Chiron raised his brows knowingly. "Why, hello. What is your name?" Since Percy feels such little need to tell me," the mid-50s man said. His eyes twinkled with mirth. "I'm Annabeth," she said with a polite smile. Chiron nodded and motioned his hands to the little counter to the side of the shop. "I'll go grab one for you from the back. Feel free to get some cocoa," he said with a wink before nearly prancing away. Annabeth looked at Percy, to the counter, and back. "He gives out hot chocolate during the December," he explained, handing her a mug of warm Christmas in drink form. Annabeth thanked him and took a sip, looking around the decorated shop. "Wow, there is so much Christmas here. I'm guessing you like this shop." Percy nodded. She was spot on, and he told her such. "I've seen those Charlie Brown trees in Piper and Thalia's apartments whenever I went over. They're so small," she said idly. "I think I wanted one as a kid," she muttered. "Did your parents think they were too small?" Percy asked, remembering the amount of people who thought the trees were ridiculous. Annabeth shook her head and gave a bittersweet smile. "I've never had a Christmas tree. Not even a small one. Small, mostly branch one, even," she admitted. Percy's mouth turned into a silent O shape. Well, now you have two," he said unsurely. Annabeth laughed a bit and nodded. "Always on the bright side, aren't you?" she sighed bitterly. "I wish I had that love of holidays. Like, really. Growing up, holidays with my mom were just fancy dinner parties where I had to act like a proper lady and impress her friends and make polite adult talk with their kids. My dad, let's just say Mom left on Christmas Day, and he married a new wife who hated me on Christmas Eve," she said in a dead voice. Percy blinked at her. "Oh. Wow," he said, not really knowing what to say next. Annabeth laughed a bit and set down her mug. "It's fine. Really, don't be worried," she said, waving it off with a flick of her hand. "Well, now you know me, and my mom installed Christmas cheer when I was born," he said lightheartedly. Annabeth snorted. "Wow, I didn't notice that," she said sarcastically. Percy smiled and laughed. "No, growing up we struggled a lot with money, and there were a lot of times we had nothing to really be happy about. But my mom always told me that Christmas was really just a day. There wasn't anything really special about the day itself. But the reason just felt so different because we made it different. People believe it's different and special and an important day. Basically, the reason Christmas is such a happy holiday, even though it's just a regular day, if you really think about it, is because you make it a special day. By treating it special, it becomes special," he explains. Annabeth tilted her head a bit and smiled at him. "That was really redundant. But I like that mindset. There's no real magic about Christmas, but we make it magical. Your mother was a smart person, Annabeth mused. Percy smiled fondly. Yeah, she was the best. Eventually, Tryon came out with the tree and gave it to them, free of charge. Percy ignored the knowing smirk and winks sent his way when Annabeth turned around to leave the shop with many thank yous. He's really generous, Annabeth said, messing with the tree when they got to her apartment. Oh, definitely. Now, let's put up your real Christmas tree. And so they did. It took an entire hour to figure out how to set up the tree, but when it was up, it looked pretty good. They ran around it, throwing lights up to the top and fluffy green garland round the bottom. Percy hung up the icicle lights while she placed small figurines all around the house. I think I really like this, she said when they had taken a step back to admire their work. Was it ever a surprise that you would? Percy said with a grin and nudged her side. Annabeth rolled her eyes but didn't protest. Thank you for helping me decorate and getting me a tree and everything, she said in a surprisingly soft voice. Percy gave her a warm smile back. Of course, anytime. I'm happy to bring some Christmas joy in your life, he said, feeling his heart swell. Annabeth shook her head slightly. No, I don't really think you quite get it yet. Thank you, she said, again. Percy had to fight the urge to pull her into a suffocating hug and bury his face into her hair and never move no matter what happened. Happy to help. If you need anything, I'm right across the way, he said kind of awkwardly. She looked at him, softly smiling, her intense gaze piercing his soul, and hold on. Her eyes, they were gray. Gray like a powerful moving storm that could never be stopped. Gray like a cooling, mysterious mist that kept the world safe. Gray unlike anything he'd ever seen before. It was challenging and beautiful all at the same time. Christmas came early. Apparently, he got one of the things he wished for. The answer to the question, what color were Annabeth's eyes? Answer, the most gorgeous shade of gray he had ever seen in his entire life.